Hello, welcome. I'm Tehniyat Majeed. It's my pleasure to welcome our guest speaker for today, who's speaking on a very, very important topic, Alexandre Colliex. Alexander has been involved in really large-scale, high-profile international exhibitions and projects. And he was the director of the Pompidou Center in Paris, the Giacometti Foundation in Paris, and he is currently working for Manifesto, a cultural organization involved with, again, international exhibitions and projects. So what's really interesting, because we have very short time period to kind of discuss this very important topic. What's really interesting is that Alexander has been closely involved in these museum projects in the Middle East and in Asia. And so I'm just going to get to the point and ask you, what is happening? What's happening? This phenomena of mushrooming museums in the Middle East and Asia. What's triggering it? What are the kind of motivations behind it? And what sort of projects are these? Because these are huge, enormous projects with designer buildings and so forth.
All right, thank you so much for this kind introduction. Clearly, and for me, it's a very exciting moment to come to Lahore and discuss this precise project of museums, as there are so many that have just been completed, that are under construction all over Asia, and you've seen some of the project, all over the Gulf region, naturally, and we'll see. I brought a few images that I want to comment. This first image is that of a private museum project in Hong Kong that I was in charge of over the, that was past few years. I want to give you a sense of, just to answer your question, this specific image that I think is very telling. It's, this was taken at the Louvre Abu Dhabi, right? And what we are, this was the official visit of the Pope, first time ever to Abu Dhabi, the Arab Emirates. And they are looking at the three books, the three main religions, obviously the Holy Quran, the Bible, the Torah. Where could this happen today, but in a museum, right? So, and obviously Abu Dhabi has used museum, to that political and diplomatic extent. So I'm going very briefly because those was a number of projects I was working on, but we'll go very quickly to this image. Why so many museums? Because I think, and just to get to the point you put on the table,
yes, right there.
They are probably the institution of our time. Meaning, if you think of it, 19th century has been building libraries. In the 19th century, the libraries were the temples of culture, of learning, where you could go and find the the education. And today, in our day and age, what we share are images. We are steeped in a culture of images, and what do we exchange? We exchange photos. This is what they're doing. They are in a museum, right? And I think part of the appeal and the relevance of museums today is that they are very emblematic of our hyper-connected culture and those flux of images that we exchange and we post on social media, all of us. But also they are the place where people will stand in front of an image and get also the opportunity to decipher, decode, understand images, right? In a way, and I'll get to that point, the museums today are also a place where you can go as a tourist. I mean, you never would go, when you go to Paris, I think you'll want to go to the Louvre, you'll want to go to Pompidou because, this is a common language of mankind, right? But you're not going to visit, and we have beautiful libraries, but they are obviously in French. So you don't visit libraries, you do visit museums. So they are extremely attractive also, and that's my second point, if you will. Museums are where you go when they're the expression of the advent of a global middle class. What makes you belong to the middle class is when you have enough that you can entertain yourself and cultivate yourself, and often make sure that your kids will have this access to learning. Those are and museums today answer that, function. This is where you can bring kids, you can go as a family, and as a tourist. You're going around Europe, that's what you do.
So just a very quick question, because, with new technologies and digital media, you can see a lot of the collections online, right? Mm-hmm. And so what's the incentive of people actually going to a museum, whereas they can just sit at home and view that art, and in a much more closer kind of way, because Google Art, you can really go and look at the tiny details in a painting.
That's a very good question, and I think that is the magic, the whole point about art. There is, and that's the beauty and mystery of it. You do have, and you're right about it, the Mona Lisa on Google Art, and all the works of the Prado are in ultra high definition. You can go into the Bosch triptych, seeing all the. This will not discourage one single visitor to the Louvre. 10 million last year, right. To the point where they cannot cope, and that they have to have experts in managing the flux, right? So it means that works of art have an aura that will make you want to be face to face. What you're looking at is the Starry Night by Van Gogh. I mean, this is on the, you can access it right now on your iPhone. You'll still want to see it at MoMA, right? And who has discovered the extraordinary impact of that necessity that art puts you into of being face to face with the work, what we call the aura of the work, from Adorno, and they are the retail industry. The retail industry is living Armageddon these days because of Amazon, right? How do you get people to your shopping mall physically, as footsteps, through the door, foot traffic through the door, and the simple answer is that they tried the cinemas. Now you've got Netflix, so it doesn't work anymore. You have a museum into a shopping mall, and people are coming. This is what they are doing. In the first image I was showing you, this one here, this museum actually is inside the biggest shopping mall in Hong Kong, K11 shopping mall, and it's in, there are a number of them in Shanghai, everywhere, okay? So they are using this formula to bring people into into their shopping mall.
Itself.
So that's one of the new functions, if you will, of museums. Let me show you, because you think I'm telling tall tales, right? I'll get back to that if we have time. This image, this was the New York Times magazine, right? And how do you advertise a new shopping malls? This is Beirut, Lebanon. Mm-hmm. This is the Haishti, very high-end, very classy, luxury brands. Inside that mall is built in a museum of contemporary art. And what do they get? They get the front page of the New York Times for your new shopping malls, outside of Beirut. That's what you get.
So Alexander, there's also an important question that I have to ask regarding, for instance, even looking at this image, the modern building and you know, the grand buildings that are being built by designer architects, you know, like INP. Well, you have like the first, like the glass pyramid at the Louvre, and then the Museum of Islamic Art in Doha, designed by IMP, and then Snøhetta, who designed like the Bibliothèque Alexandrina, and then the
King Abdulaziz Center.
King Abdulaziz Center. So what's all this about as well? Like, you know, these grand, like these big names, architectural firms, big names in architecture.
Okay. Well, you think it's all new, that, you know, it's a new trend, that architecture plays a vital role in those institutions. Actually, it's not. It's always been the case, right? Look at this. This is obviously the new African American Museum in Washington, D.C. It was opened the last year of his mandate by President Obama, right? So, and actually it's the same, you know, the Louvre in Paris served the same purpose. The idea was a museum is a place where you tell the national story, where you can create the story of belonging, you know, to a community, to a, and this was what the Louvre was about. This is exactly the point of why would President Obama open an African American museum on the Mall, right? The Mall in Washington, D.C. is the central avenue where you have all those important monuments, where the identity of what it means to be an American, you know, is built in stone, if you will, right? And this is what museum serves. But what did we do in the Louvre? We opened the Department of Islamic Art, serving the same purpose, right? Politically trying to include the Muslim population of France inside, you know, a shared narrative of what France is about. And where do you do that? In the Louvre, because this is where, you know, you have this roman, this great story of identity. And this historically, this is always translated into architecture, because first museums would look like what? Temples. The Greek temple, where you ascend the steps, like on the Acropolis, towards, you know, knowledge and culture, right? This is, you know, the Tate. We were looking at the Metropolitan Museum. This is the Tate in London. What are museums about today? They're serving the same purpose, but this is
very transparent building.
Very transparent.
Accessible.
Exactly, the open society, serving a you know, this sort of democratic ideal of getting people inside your doors. You know, this is, you belong there, this is your story. This is the Louvre by Sana, the great Japanese architect, completely transparent. This is a completely new museum opened last year in The Hague, Netherlands. Look. This is Renzo Piano's very latest art gallery, south of France. It's in Châteaulac. It's just outside of Aix-en-Provence. You see, you know, they are all using those images to make the point that, and this was Centre Pompidou. See the transparency between the street and the inside of the museum. That's the whole point, right?
So it's interesting. It appears that now the museum building itself is like an object and a destination piece to view for visitors to come and, you know, kind of look at the building, experience the spaces.
Yep.
So the objects are, obviously the collections are important, but the building has also become like this big object that is important to kind of be experienced,
of course,
as part of the collection.
That's very true. Looking at this image at the Pompidou, they were, you know, the big question was always, so you're the National Museum of Modern Art of France, but what is your Mona Lisa? Like saying, you go to the Louvre, you know you're going to see that masterpiece. And the answer is there, in front of your eyes. The Mona Lisa of the National Museum of Modern Art is the building itself. So the Mona Lisa of the Centre Pompidou is the Renzo Piano Richard Rogers building. That, you know, think of building that across from Notre Dame. It's like an oil refinery. It's like whatever you want it to be, but it's become an icon of modernist architecture. And this is why these people from Saudi Arabia, what we're looking at is the project you were mentioning earlier. The King Abdulaziz Center, this is a project that's been entirely funded by Saudi Aramco, the petroleum company of Saudi Arabia. And they came to us at Pompidou. I was working, and they said, we want actually to modernize Saudi society today. And we want to go about it by opening a cultural space that will be open to contemporary art, contemporary artists, international art. And we want to, the young Saudi, and Saudi Arabia is a young country. We want the youth of Saudi Arabia to be exposed to that. So it's kind of, you know, an interesting, this is exactly the program of the Centre Pompidou in the 70s. Because the president of France at the time, after May 68, you know, the big demonstration, he wanted a place for the young French students that were angry in the streets and, you know, we want modernity. To have a place where they could come face to face with what's modern, what's current, what's innovative, what's going to happen tomorrow, you know what artists are usually about. So the same program, politically, as what they're doing. And look, that's an interesting camp. This is the kind of project, and Snohita, our Norwegian architects, are doing something extraordinary here. We created, oh, it's not working anymore. So they created, hello guys, No, don't break.
It won't break, it won't break. I'm used to using these.
Oh, there we are, sorry, thank you.
See?
So the first time we were showing Picasso there in Saudi Arabia. And look, really this was kind of extraordinary. The female figure by Picasso had never been shown in Saudi Arabia. They didn't know if it would happen because of the religious police. And the day of the opening, the police was there. They entered the room where there was the Picasso, and literally everyone, they took their phone and got a selfie of themselves with the Picasso because they were witnessing history. Nowadays, this is going so fast. Nowadays, this is what is being programmed at the King Abdulaziz Center. This is this month's program, right? So things are happening so fast in the world of museums.
So it's also using the museum as an institution for creating a national narrative, but
Yes.
also to modernize and to be, you know, to assert yourself as a modern, contemporary nation, using the museum as a cultural institution.
Yes, there is that. There is this political objective, because a museum is clearly a place where you can experiment and develop these political objectives. But it's also, it has other obvious functions. It's also a place where you can put your country or your city on the map in the world, right? And create what we call, you know, a branding of your own country, of your own city. It can be regional or international. I was showing this image because, again, this is the other side of Saudi Arabia. Things are happening fast in the Gulf, as you are aware. And this is something that people had not seen. This is Madain Saleh, the Nabatean tombs.
Yes.
This is like in Petra, but you know, no one could go, you know, until last year to Madain Saleh. To this vestige. And here, the program of Al-Ula, they created a commission, we're working with them, is to open 8 museums in the next 4 years.
Oh, in Madain
right here,
Saleh.
in Madain Saleh. They are at work. They are coming to France for expertise in creating those new museums. So this is, you know...
So the King Abdulaziz Center for World Culture, right? Does it intend to kind of attract mostly Saudis, or also, because, I mean, is tourism a big thing in Saudi Arabia? I'm not sure, I don't really know. But is it hoping to attract their own local
Yes.
and nationals more than tourists from abroad?
That's very interesting. You don't want to see museums only as something that is conceived for tourism. They are not only tourism magnets. I'm using those different examples to show you that you can have different functions. It's really political. A national museum, and this is what the Louvre was about. It's a place where you want your own people to participate and share in a common narrative. Yes, and clearly in Tehran, the big King Abdulaziz Center that we saw here is really for Saudi youth, as I explained, right? It's for the community. Elsewhere, Madain Saleh would be more to attract international travelers, visitors, tourists, create this economy. And this is an exhibition that we have in Paris as we speak, right? It translates right away into exhibitions, touring exhibitions. This is in Paris. They are presenting archaeological finds, sculptures from that period in Paris Museum at Institut du Monde Arabe right now. So this would be to attract international tourists. And next month, I'll be going to the finissage, as they call it, of these art commissions that they have created right now. So indeed, you can do this to attract your own visitorship, the school children, and say, okay, this is an open country. I mean, to expose them to new ideas, new artists. But you can also, at the same time, want to attract foreign travelers. And this is what clearly they are doing. This was taken in Saudi Arabia last week. You have people in art, interactive art installations, right?
So, coming back to the Louvre Abu Dhabi, there was some controversy surrounding that too. By the French themselves, actually, that why are you selling?
We do that very well, controversies, yes.
It becomes a whole like corporate, profit-related kind of enterprise. So, what was what kind of visitorship and what are some of the motivations behind having Louvre in Abu Dhabi?
Obviously, sorry, I'll jump to, because I think I've got a couple of images of the Louvre Abu Dhabi that will, sorry, we are going very fast. I would have loved to discuss that project. This is Louvre Abu Dhabi. Yeah. I like this image. The moment it opened, a number of those controversies, simply
disappeared,
evaporated, because clearly this is the first image I used where, from the Louvre Abu Dhabi of different religion, side by side in a museum space. I think it is made a point that the Louvre Abu Dhabi can be a place where different worldviews can come in contact. That's the whole point of the museology in the Louvre Abu Dhabi, bringing together, and also, I think, going back to the basics of museums. A museum is a place where you have a collection of artifacts. And, year after year, the French side, it was not only about, at the start, we said, okay, they sold the brand, and I can give you a figure for that. It was an agreement between two governments, actually, so it was a financial project. But now, year after year, it's turning into an important collection. This is the Mondrian that was in the collection of the late Yves Saint Laurent, right. And it was, acquired at the auction. It was the first work of modern art that was acquired by the Louvre Abu Dhabi on the advice of French curators, right? And it was rather painful because this is priceless. There are 11 Mondrians left in private hands. You cannot tell the story of 20th century abstraction and ideas without, going through that Mondrian phase. And we advised, the French curators advised the Louvre Abu Dhabi to grab that piece. And they wanted it badly for French museums as well. So
Abu Dhabi is sort of, using the Louvre as a brand name, but also using or having this title to it means that there's certain standards of excellence in terms of curatorial approaches and curatorial, exhibits and so forth. But what's happening in terms of, is there some kind of dialogue happening between, art and collections that are coming from abroad or contemporary art, even from Abu Dhabi, and art that may be from the cultural kind of, traditional artifacts or heritage? Is that kind of dialogue also taking place there? And how sort of relevant is that, and how are they kind of curating that? And
I think it certainly is happening in the Louvre Abu Dhabi of bringing together works of art from different culture and regions. But what I think is most important now to realize is that the ones who are doing an exceptional job of creating a collection, if you will, beautiful boxes. We have seen some beautiful boxes, shiny boxes that, make a statement that here we have a big museum. But what will make you powerful in the long run is to have the reference collection for the art of a certain country, of a certain culture. Yeah. The ones who are doing this job very well, if I may, is clearly, for instance, Qatar. The Mataf is the contemporary art museum in Qatar. And they are relentlessly acquiring the very best artists of the Middle East, of Northern Africa, of the Arab world, to the point where nowadays you want to do an exhibition of contemporary art, including those regions, you have no choice. You need to ask the loans from and I'm giving you an example. At the end of the year, the Centre Pompidou in Paris, National Museum in Paris, will be having the first solo show of Farid Belkaya. Farid Belkaya was the leading artist of the School of Casablanca in Morocco. So in the 1960s, it was certainly the most interesting avant-garde south of the Mediterranean, like the Bauhaus of Africa, if I can, And Farid Belkaya, we just acquired, Pompidou or the French, acquired one work 2 years ago. And now to do the exhibition that will be in Paris, big retrospective, in Paris, and more than half of the works will come from Mataf, because they have what's relevant. So in the 21st century, those museums, those countries, have understood that they will be the ones, they will be the MoMA of the future. They will be the Tate Modern of the future, right? If today you want to do a big exhibition of the modern, the Cubist period or the Surrealist period, you go to the Pompidou, because that's where you have the relevant masterpieces, and you want to see Miro and Picasso, you go to MoMA, or Matisse, you go to. In 50 years' time, not even that, in 20 years' time, today already, for Belkaya, I gave you that example, you go to those museums. And I think it's very important, if I may, I'm in Lahore today. I've seen the incredible, biennale that you have here of contemporary art, right? In the vibrant scene, artistic scene here, what is important is that in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, the next generation, the kids, they want to see what was, so happening, and the artists, the avant-garde, and that is going to happen in the museum that will have acquired and showcased those works. So if you don't do it in Lahore, in Pakistan, others are going to do it. Others are doing it as we speak, because that's the game of museums, right?
Yes, unfortunately, I think like our historical and our financial, our like cultural circumstances are so different. Our, I don't want to say this, but museums have not been given that significance and importance in Pakistan. Although there are a couple of new museums that have been created in the last few years, the National History Museum and the Army Museum, but we're still way behind. And we're certainly not going to, in the near future, getting on the bandwagon of like,
Don't say that. I'm just saying, look, this is.
It might happen.
This is what's important. This is not about, sort of a French extravaganza nowadays. Like everyone is. I could show you, let me show you a few images to make that point, and that's a very important point here and now in Lahore, in Pakistan, right? This is the Museum of Islamic Art in Qatar. Some of you have been there, right? Have been there. This museum by Pei, who is the architect of the Louvre, the new Louvre, the pyramid of the Louvre. This collection and this museum has no equivalent.
Yeah.
The Louvre in Paris, I showed you the image
of
the Department of Islamic Art in the Louvre. Okay, it has the name, it's, made the effort. Cannot compare. It cannot compare with what's in that museum. Meaning, if you're interested, and who is not, in the civilization, in Islamic art, in those centuries of shared culture, you need to go there because, and they are telling the story, right? Obviously, the one who shows is the one who is telling the story. Do you want to be telling? Or do you want someone else to be telling your story? That's the point. And this is happening. Lots of images. This is Richard Serra in Qatar as well. Public art. I'll be talking about public art tomorrow, actually. But this is the Mataf and that's an interesting point. Coming back to contemporary art now. This artist is Adel Abdesamed, right? He was born in Algeria. He went to the fine art school in Algiers, moved to Paris during the civil war in Algeria, has now galleries in New York and Paris, big names, very successful artist. When he does this exhibition in Doha, we were having an exhibition in Paris. His exhibition in Doha was much stronger, much bigger, much more important, right? Because things are happening fast. This was the opening of the exhibition, and he had the means to create. And they are now the reference collection for these works, right? We're talking about artists in their 30s, in their 40s, from the Arab world. He's a French artist. Why? Where do you get to see the best of his work now? Where do you get to see the best exhibitions? Not in Paris, in Doha. This is what's happening now in museums.
All right, so I think we're almost we have to wrap it up soon, but I'd like you to, because we were discussing the future of the museums in the world, if you could, in a nutshell, kind of, tell us what you think is the future of the museums in the world.